There are 7 key principles covered under the PSOJ's Corporate Governance Code for Jamaica. What are they and how can you implement them in your business? I'm Khalila Reynolds and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. We're welcoming back Camille Facey, who is the chairman of the PSOJ's Corporate Governance Committee. Welcome back, Camille, to Money Moves JA.
I'm delighted to be back.
Well, last time you were here, we were talking about corporate governance, and clearly there is a lot to unpack because the PSOJ has launched its newest iteration of the Corporate Governance Code. And the last time we were talking about having a board, but it's one of 7 principles under the code. So what are the other principles?
Okay, so the 7 major principles are management and oversight, and that's where the board comes in. Governing body effectiveness, which would be the effectiveness of that board. There's no point just getting people together. They're there for a purpose. So how do you ensure that they're effective? Then remuneration is another principle. Then accountability, audit, and risk management. And risk management is just like so critical because every business, there are risks that business would be exposed to. There can be downside risks, there can be upside risks. But what is important is for you to identify the risks and see how would I manage this risk should this eventuality occur. Relations with stakeholders. So in days gone by, those stakeholders were primarily your shareholders that you were concerned about giving them a return. Today, your stakeholders are much wider. It's the community, it's the regulators, it's the customers. So the code speaks to maintaining relations with those stakeholders. And it also goes into subsidiary governance because major companies, major corporates, and we have several in Jamaica where the head office is now based in Jamaica. So the whole matter of subsidiary governance is important because when their subsidiaries do things, will they be held liable? What framework do they have to put in place to ensure that the subsidiaries are operating as they should? Timely and balanced disclosures. If you are a listed company, you know you have to report things within precise time frames.
Yes.
So the code deals with that.
And what's the final principle?
Corporate sustainability and ethics, including environmental considerations. And of course, right now, environmental considerations, those are just top of mind for every business right now.
So let's go through a few of them. And you already started telling us about the board, the first one in last week's episode. So now that we have our board, because we listened to you last week and we know that we need to have a board, and we decided, okay, we got these people, they said, yes, they'll be a part of my board. What do we talk about at this board meeting?
Okay, all right. So you have a nice board of probably 5 or 6 people, and you appoint a chairman. Right, because each board has to have a chairman.
First order of business, appoint a chairman.
Appoint a chairman. And of course, under the law, you are obliged to have at least one director and a secretary. The Companies Act provides for that. So the Companies Act already requires that you have a board, so to speak. Certainly director, at least one director and secretary, but you have 5. And the board would normally look at your objectives. So the management should come and report to the board and say, this is what the company has done over this period. If it's your first board meeting, right, the company's just started, you have to do things like open your bank account, and you're supposed to have a board resolution to open the bank account, not just sign a form saying that, this happened, unless you're the only director. So those housekeeping things would have to be taken care of. But a normal board meeting, you would go through what has happened in the preceding period. How far off objectives are you? What are the main issues that you have had that you would want to discuss with others to get their perspectives? You would also review your financial statements because, of course, you are a well-organized company and you are producing those financial statements. Because if you don't know how much money you are making, then you are behind the 8th ball. You have to know what the business is doing. And the financial statements are, of course, within the context of the report you have given to the board that says this is what we have done over the last 3 months. These are the initiatives we have pursued. What worked, what didn't work. What could be done better? Then it's also very good to have a little space in that board meeting where you talk about trends. What's happening in the market? What is the future of this industry? Technological developments. Are there technological developments that are going to affect this business? Mm-hmm. And you would then also want to report to the board on any documents that were signed on the seal. Mm-hmm. Right? So you really ought to have like your little seal book that says these are the major documents that we have signed. If you have major contracts, especially as your business grows, you will have staff. And you will have somebody who perhaps may be junior. Can that person just sign a major contract on behalf of Kalila Reynolds and Associates? Mm-hmm. I don't think so. You want to say who is authorized to sign. So you'll have things like your delegation of authority. And in that delegation of authority, it would say that contracts over a certain amount should come to the board. So you would report to the board that we want to enter into this contract for $20 million and, these are the terms, and you'd get formal board approval.
But if you have a board of advisors as opposed to a board of directors, do you still need that approval, or is it more advice?
So a board of advisors is not something that's provided for in the Companies Act. This is just a group of persons who you have asked to come and advise you.
Right.
A director has fiduciary responsibilities, which means that that director is bound by law to act in the best interest of the company, and they have legal obligations. So it's two different sets of, groupings. A board of advisors is different to a board of directors, but the advisors do play that role. They play the role you ask them to play.
Right.
Are you asking them to give oversight? Are you asking them to give strategic direction? What are you asking them to do? You will have to set out their terms of reference. Mm. And even for the board, you normally have a board charter that will speak to ethics, etc. But when you have those directors, they have legal obligations, both to the company as well, primarily to the company, but now to the wider stakeholders as well in this whole ESG environment.
Yes. So let's talk about that, because there are other principles to cover. So tell me one of the other principles that, we really should focus on.
Yes, so corporate sustainability and environmental, social, and governance is what people will hear being spoken about a lot, ESG. And that is really saying that gone are the days when you just make money as a company. You are now going to be asked, how did you make that money? Did you make that money in a way that is harmful to the environment? Did you make that money in a way that's harmful to future generations? And that's why you had like COP26, and you see all the environmental groups and social groups who will come out and demonstrate against companies if they feel that these companies are operating in a way that is bad for the planet. Mm. So these are considerations that even small businesses have to take into account, apart from the fact that in Jamaica we are totally affected. Mm-hmm. The beach I had at Hellshire is no longer there. Mm-hmm. The climate is changing. Our generation is already seeing the effects of climate change. It is the responsibility of each and every one of us to do our part. And our financiers are now saying that we're not going to lend money unless we are sure that you are taking these things into consideration. So the banks are going to start asking you about it. So each business has to look at what impact am I having on the environment and what can I do to mitigate that impact. It's an imperative.
So is this code mandatory for businesses to follow?
The Corporate Governance Code?
Yes.
No, it is not mandatory. These are guidelines and principles that the wise business people will read and adopt as suits their businesses. What will happen with listed companies is we have a corporate governance index that measures your governance compliance. So every business that's listed on the stock exchange has a rating. So you have AA, you have A, you have BB, you have B, right down to not rated. So anybody who is taking money from the public, we know the Jamaica Stock Exchange in conjunction with the PSOJ, we have committees that go through and independently rate every listed company. Because, and you can understand why. The shareholder...
Where are those ratings available?
So those ratings, we haven't published them yet, right? Even though we have done them now, this is now our 4th year. We gave businesses an opportunity to get used to them, and many of them have improved. So they're now happier for their ratings to be published. But you can ask the company at its AGM, what is your corporate governance index rating? And I can tell you that I think the stock exchange is going to be publishing them very shortly.
I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
So where can we find a copy of the corporate governance code?
It's on the PSOJ website, and it's right. It's our Jamaica Corporate Governance Code, and we really commend it to all our business people. And as I said, there's a section at the back for MSMEs and also for family businesses.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Camille. This was very helpful.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was my pleasure to be here.
All right, good.
Here's a recap of Camille's key points. There are 7 major principles that govern Jamaica's corporate government code. These are management and oversight, governing body effectiveness, remuneration, accountability, audit and risk management, relations with stakeholders and other stakeholders, timely and balanced disclosures, and corporate sustainability and ethics. Under the Companies Act, you're obliged to have at least 1 director and a secretary on your board. A big part of the Corporate Governance Code is corporate sustainability. Businesses have to take into account if their company has caused any harm to the environment. The Corporate Governance Code is not mandatory, however, it acts as a guideline for companies.
That's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Visit their website at eximbankja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Until next time.